recorded. So even if a cursory examination of this scenario shows destructive addictive behavior, reducing anxiety is more appealing than the potential stress of canvassing or prospecting, which you already know is essential for your success in real estate. We diverge to the 12 steps, which were actually created by the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous to establish guidelines for the best way to overcome an addiction to alcohol. This program gained enough success in its early years for other addiction support groups to adapt to the steps for their own needs. Now, consider it's another program that has been going for years, reproduced many times. But the general format has never changed. So if it ain't broke, go and fix it. Now, do you think this could help? Shall we do this together? I'll guide you. You ready for this? Now, the 12-step program is a peer-based mutual help program for alcoholism, drug abuse, and other addictive and dysfunctional behaviors. The steps are guiding principles that outline how to overcome addiction, avoid triggers, and live a healthy and productive life. And the group provides an anonymous, safe, supporting environment to share knowledge, build bonds, and maintain sobriety with others in similar situations. And it's led by a member of the program, often someone who has been in recovery for a significant time. Members encourage one another to share their feelings, experiences with addiction as they work through each step of the program. The goal is to help members experience a spiritual awakening or make the personal change needed to overcome addiction. Now, the programs can differ, but some common steps in the 12-step program include admitting you aren't in control of your addiction, your depression, your canvassing, your cold calling, recognizing that a higher power can give strength, examining past mistakes, making amends, living a new way of life, helping others. And while the 12-step programs are based in spiritual principles, the language of God as a higher power emphasizes how each member recognizes it, allowing for different interpretations and beliefs. So while some members do believe in a traditional God, others believe in karma, earth, science, Mother Nature, the universe, humanity at large, or even the recovery fellowship as a healing power. This will introduce the steps and allow the patients to voice any questions or concerns. For instance, 12-step encourage reliance on a spiritual foundation, but many groups give individuals the freedom to choose their own version of a higher power. This choice often helps patients let go of any religious resentments or preconceived prejudices towards religious practices. It encourages patients to attend meetings to join a group that may be instrumental in the patient's community of recovery, which could be at the office, at a social gathering. Folk are introduced to the first 3 steps, where they explore themes of acceptance, powerlessness, and surrender. They'll reflect on what a higher power means to them and to learn to recognize defense mechanisms that actually keep them stuck in addictive patterns. And with sponsorship and making connections, one finds that patients become familiar with the sponsor and sponsee relationship, are taught the importance of making connections with others. Building healthy relationships. The session builds and helps develop a further understanding about the 12 steps and encourages patients to attend meetings and work the steps. Now, you all may well be wondering, what it is that brought about this session for real estate. Good morning and welcome to today's training session. For those that you don't know me, my name is Paul Davies. Now, this session comes from a lifetime of success and learning how to be a leader and an example to others. From being a valedictorian at school sports and swimming, a paratrooper where there's only 400 selected from the intake, student representative council at Technikon, the only one to pass an advanced exam in the JCI Gold Division, and I passed with a distinction. Chairman of various running and cycling clubs, podium finishes in triathlons and cycle races, 10 comrades marathons and a South African gold medal for blind tandem racing in 2000. Moving to real estate with one company, from 3 days of cold calling and cold emails, I kicked off to 16 boards in the suburb in 3 weeks. Sold 87% of that suburb at 96% of asking price. All on exclusive mandate, all at full professional fee plus VAT, in a selling time that ranged from 0 to 43 days on an average of 7. And 13 agents left the suburb being unable to compete. Well, pretty impressive. Even if I say so myself, not so? And all of this came crashing down at 8 p.m. on Christmas Day 2014, where I got left for dead after an attack by 2 armed assailants. PTSD and manic depression caused havoc for a couple of years, where I lost everything, and I mean everything. And then I met someone who understood. I jumped on a plane to meet her. And that was 5 years of learning who I became. And with her help, we guided each other to become better. Then the COVID pandemic forced me to see a psychiatrist, which turned things around dramatically. And I took my bicycle out for a ride the next day. Shook off 20 kilos that I'd managed to put on, and started to love myself again. Zoom coaching started, and pretty soon I became one of the more forefront coaches in the real estate industry based on my learning, understanding, and experiences of the real estate industry while in it. And the spin-offs from the psychological understanding of the manic depression merged into the sales arena, which brings us to today's session, the 12 steps and the principles behind them. This study is an effort to simplify the meaning of the principles of the so-called steps. That are the principles that are incorporated into our daily lives as we walk the walk to success in our real estate careers. There's no wrong way to approach the 12 steps as the participant tries to figure out what works best for their individual needs. In fact, most participants will figure out what works best for them and need to revisit some of the steps or even address more than one of the steps at one time. Employing each of these steps or behaviors will actually help us rebuild our lives as we recover from our addiction to not canvassing or prospecting. And the steps are tools for living a life of increased self-esteem, self-confidence, which will lead to a life of abundant success. We'll touch on honesty, on hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, discipline and action, forgiveness, acceptance, knowledge and awareness, service and gratitude. So, no matter what form the rejection might take, hearing that someone doesn't want to be with you can make you feel like you're not good enough. And then you wind up questioning your own self-worth. When we hear no, we start asking ourselves, what's wrong with us? And although it's hard, it's important to try not take rejection personally particularly within a relationship with a mandate. The rejection may have nothing to do with you at all and be more your partner's own issues, insecurities, or fears. And if you're feeling rejected, heartbroken, or depressed, surround yourself with the people who love you so that they can remind you how great you are, because rejection causes insecurity. And the way to recover from that is to spend time where the social group actually accepts you. Keeping physically active can also help boost your mood by releasing endorphins. Most important, to keep busy, whether it's with work, friends, or other activities, and distract yourself. And resist the urge to creep your ex on social media until the pain subsides. In time, you'll think about them less and it will hurt less. You just have to get there. And if they don't want you and they don't know how great you are, there's no need to convince them. There is somebody out there waiting for you who will embrace you and accept all of you. So just let them go. Make room for what's coming. Let's stop here. Ever had a mandate cancelled? That's a break in relationship. See the comparisons? So there's someone out there waiting for you who will embrace and accept all of you. Move on from that mandate. Move on from that relationship. Just let them go and make room for what's coming. But if you're feeling rejected within your relationship at work or at home, it's imperative that you speak up. Otherwise, those feelings are going to build and build and build until resentment forms. When you speak to your colleague or your partner, try to use I statements such as, I was very hurt, rather than pointing fingers so your colleague or partner doesn't become defensive and the conversation devolves into a fight or a misunderstanding. The program gained enough success in its early years for other addiction support groups to adapt the steps to their own needs, just as it's now been taken and adapted to real estate. So, while some people found seeking recovery from addiction or depression found the principles behind the 12 steps of a recovery program simple, others actually found those steps complex. So this session is actually an effort to simplify the meaning of the principles of the 12 steps for those who may be having difficulty. These so-called steps are the principles that are incorporated into our daily lives as we walk the walk of recovery. And employing each of these steps or behaviors is going to help us rebuild our lives as we recover from addiction, depression, or simply just a plain old bad headspace. The steps are tools for living a life of increased self-esteem and self-confidence. So in my never-ending quest to keep it simple, let's go through the action principles behind the 12 steps. Although they rely heavily on spirituality, many non-religious people have found the program immensely helpful. The language emphasizes the presence of God as each participant understands him, allowing for different interpretations and religious beliefs. Now, because recovery is a lifelong process, there's no wrong way to approach the 12 steps, as the participant tries to figure out what works best for their individual needs. In fact, most participants find that they will need to revisit some steps or even tackle more than one step at a time. There's many different programs for various addictions and compulsive behaviors, ranging from Cocaine Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous, all using the same 12-step methods. So we've got this for property practitioners and newcomers to the industry and followers of the AA 12-step program who want to give up a program or a problem of drinking, drugging, gambling, overeating, sex, to name 5 examples, and also those who struggle with depression, particularly after lockdown, and those who are facing a slump in their careers. From there, we stepped into the alternative 12 steps as well, which is probably the most fascinating. Some only divert from the 12 steps in the absence of God, and others don't include the word alcoholic or powerless at all. As a free thinker, or at least someone who values thoughtful inquiry and constant questioning, I decided to sit down and rewrite the 12 steps in a language that I can tolerate and with a philosophy that resonates with me. I don't buy into the powerlessness at all. I do think that I'm powerless over depression, and once it gets into my system, plenty of experience has proven this. Am I powerless of being triggered? Of course not. I've struggled with these for the past 8 years, and I haven't been in some mystical trance from tablets the entire time. So how's that for free thinking? Can I have a high five? Well, thanks. Now, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The relative success of the AA program seems to be due to the fact that an alcoholic who no longer drinks has an exceptional faculty for actually reaching and helping an uncontrolled drinker. Now, the same applies for the person struggling with distraction or depression. They too have got an exceptional faculty for reaching and helping the uncontrolled depressive. So in its simplest form, the AA program operates when a recovered alcoholic passes along the story of his or her own problem drinking, describes the sobriety he or she has found with the AA, and actually invites the newcomer to informal fellowship. So too, for the distracted or depressed property practitioner, the canvassing or prospecting results will indicate the improvements as a result of the care and control. The heart of the suggested program of personal recovery is contained in the 12 steps describing the experience of the earliest members of the society. Let's get started on that road to recovery. For this exercise, we'll first give the descriptions of the steps as provided by the Alcoholics Anonymous. Dive into the alternative steps and follow it with an understanding, and then pop into a real estate point of view. Ready? Let's go. From the first step, honesty. From AA, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unimaginable. The alternative steps say we need to acknowledge that I cannot drink safely at any time, and that bad shit happens to me every single time, and it tears my life to shreds. See the comparison between the two? The one just elaborates a little bit more graphically. Now, the operative principle behind step 1 is honesty. If you cannot get honest about the scope of your problem and honest about a sincere effort to resolve it, you're not going to succeed in your recovery. How about a definition of honesty as the absence of the intention to deceive? Why do we try to fool ourselves as well as others? So for real estate, I need to acknowledge that I cannot be distracted from canvassing or prospecting, that no positive production occurs, and it tears my life to shreds. Harsh, but true. Hope. From AA, we came to believe that we couldn't solve the problem on our own, but the group power of the AA and the rest of this program could restore us to sanity. The alternative steps: come to believe I am worth living happily and sober. Come to believe that I have the power to do things differently. I can change maladaptive and destructive patterns of thought, behavior, and action, and make wise choices to stay sober and happy. And also from AA, that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Let's break it down. In order to engage in a course of addiction, depression, recovery, we must have actually hope of success. If there's no hope, why try? Perhaps you failed on your own, so how about enlisting some help? The way to find hope is to realize that recovery is not a question of your ability. After all, there's millions in recovery. Your hope of recovery is not through ability, but through persistence and application. So approach a mentor and ask for guidance. Come to believe that I am worth living happily and progressively successful. That I have the power to do things differently, that I can change maladaptive and destructive patterns of thought, behavior, and action, and make wise choices to canvassing, prospecting, and being happy. And with that, we need the faith that things are going to work. We each nominated greater powers to remind us that there are things bigger than ourselves and not to play God. Then we begin to let go of self-will. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And from the alternative steps, become willing to do things differently and make healthy choices in my thoughts, behaviors, and actions through various methods, be it cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, suggestion from wise friends, my sponsor, my father's wisdom, a therapist, meetings, mediation, and the development of my own inner strength and wisdom. For real estate, this step represents a stage of action where you begin to employ the recovery skills you've learned. You can seek out help with the skills, but it's also necessary to utilize them on your own. Your job is to become willing to do the right thing. To canvass or prospect is not to engage in your old behavior. Have faith that your recovery will work. Become willing to do things slightly differently and make healthy choices in my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions, be it suggestion from wise friends, my mentor, my colleagues' wisdom, and the development of my own inner strength and wisdom to canvass and prospect. Stepping deeper from the foundation of the first three, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Look at the pattern and thoughts and behavior that don't serve me. And they keep me angry, depressed, upset, and lead me to drink. Where resentments are concerned, acknowledge my part, be it ever so small, so that I can empower myself to change these patterns and have compassion for others. Recognize that interacting with unhealthy people is foolish and actually causes me harm. This step is really about having the courage to honestly relate back to step one. Look at yourself. Take a look at how your perspective has become warped to justify your continued behavior? Are you continually going out for a cup of coffee, to chat to your friends, finding a biscuit to eat, something sweet? You're in a recovery program to take an honest assessment of yourself. This is actually about having the courage to do that. So look at the patterns of thought and behavior that don't serve me. Those that keep me angry, depressed, and upset, and lead me away from canvassing and prospecting. Where resentments are concerned, acknowledge my part, be it ever so small, so that actually I can empower myself to change these patterns and have compassion for others. Recognize that interacting with unhealthy people is foolish and actually causes me harm. Have the integrity to admit without reservation to ourselves and to other human beings being the exact nature of our wrongs. Reflect on these patterns. Discuss them with someone if necessary. And fully acknowledge that these things harm me and cannot continue. AA admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So if you've truly done a thorough job of introspection and evaluation of your assets and your shortcomings, do you actually have the integrity to own up to them? I know it can be exceptionally difficult to be open and honest about your past behaviors and mistakes. I've been there. You must accept them and accept the need for a dose of humility. So we've admitted without reservation to ourselves and to another colleague or another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We're going to reflect on these patterns, actually discuss them with someone if necessary, and then fully acknowledge that these things harm me and definitely cannot continue. Willingness. Now, every few months, we're going to make a short list of our defects that are most in need of attention. We're going to become willing to surrender these negative patterns of thought, behavior, and actions, including drinking or other addictive behavior, unhealthy romantic entanglements with douchebags, unhealthy job settings, and unhealthy people. From AA, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So now that we have accomplished an inventory of the good and the not so good aspects of our character and our behavior, are we actually willing to change them? All of them. The important part in this 12-step principle is the willingness to let go of odd behaviors. Become willing to surrender these negative patterns of thought, behavior, and actions, including all distracting behavior of thought and other addictive behavior, unhealthy real estate entanglements, unhealthy job settings, and unhealthy people. Humility. Point number 7. Make it a project to minimize one or more of your worst faults and improve our behavior. Take the necessary action to change these maladaptive patterns, to end unhealthy relationships, and continue to take action that actually leads me to sobriety, sanity, and wellness. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Now, here we move further into action. Into step 6, you become willing to let go of your old behaviors. Now you actually ask for help in actually letting go. Can you learn to forgive yourself? Make it a project to minimize one or more of our worst faults and improve our behavior to actually pick up the phone to cold call or canvas. Take the necessary action to change these maladaptive patterns, to end unhealthy relationships. Continue to take action that actually leads me to sanity, wellness, and financial comfort. We've got to have the discipline to take action. We make a list of all the persons we have harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. We are continuing to remove the barriers that can block forward sober growth. We're getting ready to sweep our side of the street clean. Make a list of all those people you've harmed, both through actions and not being present, or simply living up to obligations. Consider the friends, the family, the colleagues who have watched you wallow, make mistakes, and are not being true to self. Now is the time to take action and actually get up and apologize to them with positive action to make amends. It's not just speech, it's action. We make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Asking for the forgiveness of those we have intentionally or unintentionally injured is the order of the day with this step. This is where you take action regarding the list that you made in step 8. And a key point here is to try and connect those injuries through physical action, not just words. It's highly recommended of you that you actually get guidance here and help with this step. Asking forgiveness is not a gift to the other person, but rather an act of kindness to yourself. So make direct amends to such people wherever possible, keeping in mind, except when to do so would injure them, myself, or others. Step 10, acceptance. We continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrongly prompted, we admit it. To be human is to make mistakes. We know that. So hopefully our journey up to here has led us to a point where we can actually readily admit mistakes, accept ourselves for being imperfect. We must also learn not to judge others, but actually to accept them for who they are, not our vision of who they should be. So continue to watch for that maladaptive behavior, that failure to pick up that phone without judgment, and take action to change it. We've had enough cold calling sessions to support this. Be kind and apologize when I am in the wrong. And right now, it's 3 hours a day of canvassing or prospecting to become the best that I can be. Here, we need to take acceptance and control. The knowledge and awareness. Step 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our spiritual awareness and our understanding of the AA way of life, and to discover the power to carry out that way of life. From AA, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us to carry and the power to carry that out. So here we search for our path and try to become aware of our purpose in life and actively pursue that purpose. Right now, a lot of folk have found out that their actual purpose in life differs from where they were yesterday. I view this principle as just being aware and not being caught up in the rush of life. This step is about making a conscious effort to do the right thing and to be at peace. So right here, I involve myself in positive activities such as dance, travel, learning in classes, exercise, meditation, going to museums and readings, writing, cooking. So hang out with positive and spirit-lifting people to participate in life, keep moving forward and far away from my addictive or depressed past. And we move into step 12, the service and the gratitude. So having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we then try to carry out this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The alternative steps: to develop an ethical compass, treat others with respect and compassion, live with wisdom and generosity. So having brought about a behavior and an attitude change sufficient to remain in recovery, you are actually empowered to demonstrate the new principles by which we live in our daily life through example. At this stage in a 12-step program, you actually go and seek out and are available to help others in need. So you give back to the community when possible and to others in recovery while employing healthy boundaries. Live an example of a positive, open-hearted, honest and ethical life, and put the shopping cart back where it belongs in the grocery store parking lot. Newcomers are not asked to accept or follow these 12 steps in their entirety if they feel unwilling or unable to do so. They will usually be asked to keep an open mind, to attend meetings at which recovered alcoholics, distracted or depressed folk describe their personal experiences in achieving sobriety, and to read literature describing and interpreting the program. Members will usually emphasize to newcomers that the only problem drinkers themselves individually can determine whether or not they are in fact alcoholics. The same goes, change the word alcohol, drink, or alcoholics with distraction, depression, depressed. See how the two join up? So at the same time, it's going to be pointed out that all available medical testimony indicates that alcoholism is a progressive illness, that it cannot be cured in the ordinary sense of the term, but that it can be arrested through total abstinence from alcohol in any form. Depression or distraction may be avoided if the triggers are known and controlled. So, does the system work? Because of the anonymity of the program and the lack of formal research available, it's hard to tell just how effective the 12-step model is. However, the prominence of this type of treatment, as well as success stories from recovering addicts, suggests that it is effective. At least the very least, the 12-step model provides support, encouragement, and accountability for people who genuinely want to overcome their addiction or depression. So, next, let's discuss the sponsor. A 12-step program sponsor can be defined as an individual in an addiction or depression recovery program who mentors somebody else. And being a sponsor to a person recovering from a drug or alcohol addiction is a feature of the 12-step program. This form of supporting another person who's had similar difficulties is an effective tool of reminding people in recovery where they've come from, and also teaches people about empathy and getting outside of themselves to actually get out and help others. It's a conscious way of working against self-centeredness. Dr. Bob Smith, who was a co-founder of the 12-step program Alcoholics Anonymous, said that he was so active in trying to help others find sobriety because he spends a great deal of time passing on what he had learned to others who want and need it so badly. He does it for these 4 reasons: a sense of duty, it's a pleasure, because in doing so, I'm paying my debt to the man who took the time to pass it on to me. And because every time I do it, I take out a little bit more insurance against myself, against the possible slip. The 12-step model gives people a framework from which to surrender their addiction, process their experience, and move forward into new patterns. As described in an article on Psych Central called Recovery Using the 12 Steps, following the model assists an individual by actually help build the following mental and emotional transformative practices and tools. It gives us the ability to recognize and admit that one is experiencing an addiction problem, a surrender to the fact that addiction exists, and a decision to seek control through an outer guide. Self-observation and awareness of the behaviors that were part and arose from the addiction, as well as those that actually help promote self-restraint. A chance to practice that restraint and build self-esteem in one's positive capabilities, and the achievement of self-acceptance and the ability to change behaviors. Compassion, both for those that have been affected by the addiction and for those who similarly struggle with addiction. Tools that make the process a continual practice throughout the individual's life. Now, by providing these experiences and tools, the 12-step model can be a method for change in many types of behaviors. And as a result, it can help the individuals who wish to overcome addiction, depression, to find a path to recovery. So, overcoming your addiction to rejection. No, doesn't mean failure. So if we get our life in perspective, the metamorphosis of the real estate industry has evolved in such a way that it's now gridlocked with training courses and systems. For every problem, a new course or a new system or app has been developed. Seminars, blogs, websites, a plethora of social media materials have actually spawned another entire industry, feeding like a parasite on the crisis of perpetual failure and mediocrity. Why have real estate agents come up against this brick wall? Why is it more likely for you to fail in this industry than succeed? There are 2 reasons for all of human behavior. 1, to increase pleasure. 2, to reduce anxiety. In short, in brackets, we're all hunting for that next dopamine fix. Endorphins are chemicals that produce feelings of pleasure in certain areas of the brain. Drinking alcohol, taking drugs, sex, exercise all produce endorphins. Clearly, some addictions are socially acceptable, while others are considered deviant. Been there. So when then are addicts really addicted? Is it alcohol? Is it drugs? Perhaps if we viewed addiction in a more comprehensive manner, we would conclude that all addicts are addicted to the release of endorphins, regardless of the substance or the activity that stimulates them. But unfortunately, we've overlooked the chaos of human nature. The pariah of all motivation-based and skill-based training is uncovered when we actually realize that the fingerprint of our humanity is that we all tend to gravitate to the line of least resistance. after all the courses and social media seminars and all the rest of the hype are done, we're actually left with decent human beings that will do almost anything to deliberately avoid these activities, which they absolutely know beyond a shadow of a doubt are essential for their success. The tragic history of the real estate agent tells the full story. 85% of them who become licensed agents this year are going to be gone in the next 3 years. 55% will be effectively gone in a year. I lose 10 a week off my database. 85% of the rest are going to wallow in mediocrity throughout the rest of their career. We ask, why does it never change? Contrary to the belief of many coaches and trainers, most agents aren't lazy, and they certainly are not undermotivated. They are fully equipped to be successful, very successful. Every climber on Everest was once a highly motivated individual, and there they lie in perpetuity for those that made one simple mistake. Generally, when something doesn't make mistakes, it's cast off as nonsense. If something seems irrational, hey, it's got to be emotional. There's an emotional root cause for this apparent chaos of human nature. This is a psychological crisis. For the most part, the continued failure to succeed in the presence of an opportunity and ability has actually been characterized as willful, destructive behavior. This is a breeding ground for the high level of stress and anxiety. And our natural response to such severe emotional conditions is to seek refuge and avoid it at all costs. It's part of our instinctive nature. Because stress is always caused when we do things we know we shouldn't do. And or when we don't do things we know we should do. So as a candidate or a property practitioner, picking up the phone to prospect for business is extremely frightening most of the time. But hey, you've been creative. You've attended a lot of seminars on getting this organized. This is exactly what most agents do under the pretense that they were working. I know, I was there. I would push paper around my desk, tidy my office, put my clients in alphabetical order, and then after such a heavy workload, I will call my friends to find out what we're going to do for lunch. The fear of rejection has become a major block in our lives. It's paralyzed you, and you possibly become more analytical, protecting yourself from anything with the potential of rejection. So listen to this next section carefully. It could change your life. If you get this and put it into practice, you will have overcome the most destructive force you are facing in your real estate career, and you will break through into your promised land. I promise. What's rejection? Have you ever thought about how words affect us? Ironically, when we overplay or stretch a word beyond its meaning, we lose its meaning. Rejection is one of those words that has devastating results in your mind. So, here's what the thesaurus gives us synonyms to help us better understand the word of rejection. It's refusal, denial, rebuffal, denunciation, dismissal, elimination, negative. Look at those words. They assault your mind and thoughts. We grew up never wanting to be rejected. We always wanted to be loved. However, there are many people who have brutally suffered through the emotional pains of personal rejection by a life partner. Some children have been unbearably rejected, denied the love of a parent. And when a perfect stranger says no, or someone slams the door in your face, or a member of your database never responds, do you really think this is rejection? Seriously? How dare we correlate a dreadful, supremely painful, personal rejection to a simple response of canvassing or prospecting? Doesn't it sound ridiculous? Give me a high five on this. Let's stop using the word rejection and call it for what it really is during prospecting. It's information. That's right. It's information. If your next door neighbor puts someone else's board on their lawn, that's information, not rejection. Your neighbor has just informed you you've screwed up. So whatever the reason it happened, that you've been given a fantastic lesson, you're either going to choose to learn from it, or you will create another disturbing story to pollute your mind. Life is easier to deal with when we realize it's all about math. Everything has a formula. The universe is held together by a formula that only a few understand. Parking your car is all about geometry. Losing weight is all about calories. Similarly, successful prospecting is not merely measured by the number of yeses, but more importantly, by your willingness to get an abundance of no's. In fact, the real goal of prospecting is to get as many no's as quickly as possible. Panic. Why? Relax. It's a formula that in general terms says, every time you get a no, you're one step closer statistically to the one who will say yes. The law of averages is your best friend. Getting no is not a failure. Getting no often enough will make you overwhelmingly successful and abundantly rich. So, okay, try this metaphor. You're downtown in the heart of Johannesburg. It's 5 p.m. Now you're pulling out of the parking garage and starting the journey for home. Does anyone believe that your trip home will be without traffic snarls, red lights, honking horns, double parked trucks, angry people, untimely cell phone calls, taxis cutting in? Of course not. You don't like it. Maybe you even hate it. But you're heading home to enjoy a beautiful evening. You have come to expect the headaches along the way, without any irrational melodrama and whining about your life. Hey, wake up. This journey home is just like real estate sales. That's the way it is. And it's okay. It's never going to change, no matter how many new training courses you take or how many social media programs you embrace. Your goal was to get home, and it didn't matter what lay ahead. You knew the trip would be horrific, but the destination compelled you to stay excited and focused. We were told some crazy things when we came into real estate: set your own schedule, unlimited opportunity, great income, and on and on and on. It's not that anyone lied to us, but they never told us the complete truth. When the truth was still good enough, we began to see ourselves not as good enough given the expectations we actually had. We were never told that we were in the business of getting no most of the time. In fact, almost all of the time. That is the formula for success in real estate. And not knowing that formula is the reason you began to cope using a host of avoidance behaviors. And most avoidance behaviors are good things. They must pass the test of having an appearance of meaningful behaviors. If not, it would be too apparent to us. So let's make a list of good avoidance behaviors. Making a list of things to do. Working on your database. Working on your website. Your Facebook page. Reading the posts. Going to skills training seminars. That's why you're here, isn't it? Watching live webinars. Reading real estate magazines. Discussing real estate ideas with other agents. Writing persuading copies for ads. Attending real estate business luncheons, etc., etc., etc. No one would dare suggest that these are not only good, but important activities to pursue. So what's the problem? The problem was that you developed behavior patterns that greatly hindered your progress. You're busy for sure, but not productive. You did not realize then that you'd become negatively enforced using your avoidance techniques. And like the proverbial blind squirrel, you've been able to find an acorn occasionally. In operant conditioning language, reinforcement involves the addition of a reinforcing stimulus following a behavior that makes it more likely that a behavior will occur again in the future. Big words, yes, I know. But when a favorable outcome occurs after an action, that responsible behavior is strengthened. In terms of addiction, the favorable result after an action is the release of endorphins. So any action increasing pleasure produces endorphins. Ironically, now get this, any action reducing anxiety also produces endorphins. So now we've got to come face to face with the mystery as to why agents are momentarily satisfied with their non-productive avoidance activities. Similarly, a black tar heroin addict is momentarily satisfied after the injection when the heroin courses through the brain and manipulates the release of those endorphins. Yep, but no addict wants to be an addict. You will also manipulate endorphins when you drive away from a for sales by owner sign, FSBO. Refuse to call your database or decide not to go door knocking. Guaranteed, you will also find a justifiable excuse. Maybe you're going to conclude it's too early, too late, can't find the phone number, you don't have your marketing materials, you didn't shave, you have the wrong shoes on, you haven't done your hair, whatever. If it wasn't for this, or if it wasn't for that, you can be sure it's going to be a great day. Most agents go on a pretend to prospect. In the fact of opportunity and the time available, most agents diligently organize themselves to work rather than work. Organization is a good thing, but prospecting is better. The conditioned response to escape is reinforced every time we avoid the best, because the endorphins are flowing. Tranquility is restored. And even a tertiary examination of the scenario clearly sees the destructive addictive behavior. Reducing anxiety is more appealing than the potential stress of doing the activity that you already know is essential for success. And you do it often, while in the face of pressing personal needs. The addiction of avoidance behavior is sadly a part of your behavioral repertoire. So let's investigate it. How can you control it? It's long been held that once an addict, always an addict. Addicts will never be cured. That's true. You'll have to battle against this relentless foe your entire real estate career. If you want it to be successful, the only way to manage it in every situation is to get your life in perspective. So stop allowing people you don't even know to dictate who you will become. Once you made the decision to avoid prospecting, you were allowing someone who didn't care whether they lived or died to intimidate you. Consequently, you abandoned your dreams and abdicated your family responsibility. Most people don't care about you, mainly because they simply don't know you. They don't care whether you make it in life or not. Why should they? But many of us here have those who are desperately counting on us and depending on us to do everything we can to create a great life and build a freedom that comes with financial stability. These are the ones who love us and need us. So get your life in perspective. Think about those who love you and are counting on you. Get a special photograph of them. Put it in the windshield visor of your car. Put it on your desk and use it to fortify yourself. So the next time you have an opportunity to go to the door of a FSBO, the granddaddy of all fear, here's the one way to harness the fear and overwhelm the addiction for that moment. When your heart begins to palpitate and your mouth goes dry, fear tapes will begin to play in your mind. And at that very instant, flip the visor down. Stare at the picture and get your life in perspective. The FSBO doesn't care about you, but your family does. Your family loves you. The FSBO doesn't care whether you make it in life or not, but your family is desperately depending on you making it. The FSBO doesn't care if you live or die, but your family would grieve forever if you did. Get your life in perspective. You and those depending on you deserve it. Can I have a yes? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. So in closing, we'll leave you with one of Richard Branson's #1 productivity secret. Guess what his answer was? I'll give you a hint here. It's not what you're going to expect. It's not some work habit, scheduling system, tool, hack, or app. You're going to hate me for this, some of you. It was physical exercise. And he is 100% spot on about this. Science actually proves it. Scientific research proves that exercise and good physical fitness not only improves your health, reduces your risk of disease, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, high blood pressure, even cancer. All lower your stress levels, boosts your mood, and makes you more attractive and self-confident. But also simultaneously raises your energy and improves your brain functions, which leads to faster learning and radically boosts your productivity as well. Convinced yet? Well, we certainly hope you are.